passe. Oh, l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Going into the EHF European League Final Four, we had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. Any team could have taken it. And the semi-final day proved that with some nail-biting finishes. But in the end, it was Kevin Møller's 41 saves across 2 games that brought the gold home for Flensburg again in the European League as they round off a season with a title. A disappointing season, but one that finishes with a title. It's Alex Kulesh here, joined by Chris O'Reilly. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good, Alex. Tell you what, Flensburg know how to win at a Final Four, particularly in the European League. Jim Gottfriedson knows when to step up after a miserable season. And the Mollers, it's all about, you said Kevin Møller, but both Mollers, Lasse Moller as well, in a final event which was either made or broken by goalkeeper performances in the end, particularly in the final. It's strange looking back at this now that we're talking about the whole weekend, because after Saturday I was totally pumped. Like 2 amazing semi-finals really had me looking forward to the final, and it was a little bit of a disappointing conclusion to it, I would say, for the neutral. But I think we're just going to have to doff our cap to Flensburg.
Absolutely. They came through the first semi-final against Melsungen, which I do think was the best match of the weekend. And the winner of that match was going to win it. We can get into that a little bit. And in the final, Montpellier just failed to reproduce what they did in the semi-final against Kiel. I think Flensburg definitely were better in almost every aspect of the game, and then compounded by Kevin Møller, especially just, there was a spell, let's say 20 minutes into the game, it was quite an even game, and Kevin Møller just went on fire. Flensburg went up 6 goals, and that was it. That was the game. Montpellier never were able to go below that buffer. At times, the lead stretched to 10 in the second half, and Flensburg just kind of strolled to victory. But it was very interesting because looking at this Flensburg team and how they played across both games, it's an absolute mystery how Nikolai Krikow thought he could get these guys to absolutely sprint up and down the court with abandon for a methodical approach. Like it was a completely different Flensburg, and it was, I would say, Jim Gottfriedson's Flensburg. They meticulously picked apart their opponents throughout both games. They barely played second wave fast break. The combination of Jim Gottfriedson and Mads Mensa Larsen proved to be the decisive one, and it's just, it's a bit strange. It got them the championship, but if you're Aleš Pajovic, who's come in to Flensburg to steady the ship after the turmoil with Nikolai Krikow, and just immediately, seemingly give the keys to Jim Gottfriedson, who's leaving next season. I don't know if that's the long-term best solution.
It's not, but it gets you a European title, then happy days. And, that's what I think. As I said at the beginning, he knows how to win events like this. And it was seeing him kind of in his element, like I haven't seen him in quite a while, got me kind of like, thinking that there is a little bit of fight left in this old dog. He has some miles left on the clock, because we talked about in the preview on the podcast last week that it didn't really feel like there was it was much of a season for him at all. He kind of threw in the towel, I think was your term.
Absolutely
for this season.
did.
And that was not the case this weekend.
It's a strange run with Jim Gottfriedson now. And I think, again, he is a winner. He needs control of the team. And that's what we talked about, the conflict with Nikolai Krikow, where if you don't involve Jim Gottfriedson, give him the keys, basically make him coach, he's going to get angry. Aleš Pajovic probably made the right decision. You come in halfway through the season, team is in turmoil, you just rely on the base that's built there and has been there for a long time. But as Jim Gottfriedson begins to age, which he's already doing, he's definitely, like, his style of play is becoming more and more kind of end of career Mikkel Hansen without the whipped arm shot. It's that kind of standing, methodical, I'm gonna like barely attack, but just my presence and the brain is going to make gaps for players as long as they're running around me. And it worked. Like, as I said, that combination of Jim Gottfriedson and Mads Benson Larsen was really effective. Jim Gottfriedson on left back, kind of taking a few steps in and releasing Mads Benson Larsen at full speed. Very simple, but time and time again, it broke apart defenses at crucial times in both the semi-final and then in the final as well, with Lucas Jorgensen continually getting that ball in the middle, really just from that. And it really worked. But I think it's, again, not to be really negative here for a Flensburg team that, really came up trumps this weekend. I think there's a risk with Mikkel Appelgren and Zeget next season that it's something really difficult to manage. They have a good relationship, but he's going to become more and more difficult to manage as his athletic ability, quite obviously goes down. His brain is still there. He can dominate, but this Flensburg team didn't run. It was Emil Jakobsen running. He was the only player that ran. Lucas Jorgensen as well on the line in the fast break. But comparatively to the way, let's say, Melsungen played, and in the end, Flensburg beat Melsungen. That's the facts. But Melsungen played this, swashbuckling, Balenciaga-led second wave fast break game, which we're seeing as the it's the base for handball, but nice to have that diversity. So congratulations to Jim. I was watching it waiting to hate on him for some reason. I don't know. I'm over. I was like, but he didn't give me an opportunity, so that is the sign of a top player.
For him, just one thing about his future, he is going to a softer league now in Hungary, and he's only turning 33 in September, which is a bit of a surprise. If you were to guess his age, I think a lot of people for a long time would have thought he's in his mid-30s, but he's just, and that's maybe to his benefit, because he's not always been the speediest guy, and so I think he does have a chance to, a little bit like you mentioned, like end stage Hansen, like recreate a little bit how he plays and focus on the timing aspect of his playmaking. But yeah, that semi-final against Melsungen was an absolute cracker. It took 11 more saves though from Kevin Møller to win that game, and it was like a game that, well, I was going to say went right down to the wire. It went to extra time in the last throw, and there was a moment in particular when Melsungen quite literally threw it away. Our friend Adrian Šipoš from the halfway line, thinking about an empty net goal, and that didn't quite blow it for them, but in a way it kind of did as well.
It was classic end game, extra time, poor decision making from Melsungen players. There's 3 examples in extra time which cost them the game, the title, cost them everything, and the Šipoš one was the most obvious one. 1 goal in, it's still 40 seconds left, and the ball comes to Šipoš, and he goes for the empty net goal, and that is just low oxygen in the brain. That's all that it is. He saw his name in flashing lights. Such a poor decision. But before that, same type of poor decision making happened in defense, where twice Melsungen players went for a steal where they missed it. There was one where it was Johannes Golla on the left side, and Ian Barrafet tried to just get ahead and steal the ball. It was kind of a lofted ball into the line. It was open, but he didn't get there. Golla turned goal, and then the same on the next attack. It went out to the left, and it must have been Kastening on the right side of Melsingen's defence, went for a steal for that pass to the left wing for Emil Jakobsen, who went in and scored a really easy goal. And just 3 stupid decisions, but not from stupid players, from tired, lacking oxygen players. That happens in these situations, and Flensburg benefited from that.
Yeah, great match. That was it. Really good match. Really enjoyable. And
it was.
Proper highlight. And for Melsungen, then we talked about last week their approach for the weekend. It showed on Sunday then, where they basically played the B team. All focus, all eyes on Thursday against Berlin in the title eliminator. That I think if they can somehow get something on Thursday, it'll put this disappointment behind them.
I think what made it is the clash of styles. As I said, Flensburg very methodical, bring the ball up slow, moving around. It's the attack still had pace, of course. It wasn't a slow attack. It was just more methodical. While on the other side, Melsungen only had the second wave fast break for the majority of the second half. They could get nothing going from a set attack, and throughout the game, when they did get things going, Moller was there to save it, especially from the line players. Moraes and Shiposh going 2 goals from 9 shots from the line, and that's a huge difference maker. You talk about goalkeeping performances, and in this case, and I think throughout the weekend, Muller's saves were just valued so much more. If you the expected goals metric that Handballytics has done before, I think if you brought that up, Melsungen won expected goals by so many more than Flensburg, because those saves came.
And they had 11 more shots on target. Melsungen had so many more shots on target. Yeah, Moller is just when he's in form, he has this aura about him. He just he is kind of a Wolf-esque big man. Maybe doesn't have the same kind of flexibility in his movement, but he is incredible at just putting himself in the right spot and holding his ground, particularly on high shots, for longer than a lot of other goalkeepers. He trusts himself a lot, and there were so many of those point blank shots from the line, or Christopans breaking through, or Jonsson. He kept both of them down to the 50% mark or so with their shooting. They scored a lot, but they missed a lot as well. And his aura is just massive, and I think that was what carried over in the final against Montpellier, because he just he broke their souls.
He absolutely broke their souls. Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually just really impressed by Melsungen. This is maybe not the big story here, but I think they deserve to win the game. Balenciaga was incredible in the second half. They went on a 7-minute drought. And it was Balenciaga with 3 goals, 2 assists, all in that second wave fast break, or just kind of slashing through the defense. Very Luke Steins their styles are, sometimes we compare Staskuba obviously Balenciaga and Steins as very similar players, but I think Balenciaga has that insane power that Steins has to just like sail through defenses. Really, really impressive. And that whole right side for Melsung in with Balenciaga, Christopans and Kastening was really effective. Christopans as well, having a fantastic game. But, Flensburg had enough. They kept it together. They kept it controlled. And that's, that is the benefit of a style like that. They never allowed Melsungen to get on any serious run. And defensively, they were very good as well. Like they're a big team, Flensburg. There's a couple of times where they had a defensive lineup which included Kopliar as number 2, Gola and Blagotinček, as well as like Lasse Moller on the other side, and you had this massive wall.
Kirkelucke in there as well. He's tall, maybe not the biggest, but tall.
And Jurgensen, like they just have big defenders. It was two really beasts of teams that were battling out. Fantastic game. But the other semi-final was also, pretty exciting. And in the end, it was a last-second winner from Ahmed Hesham, who was very impressive in that game, sealing it for Montpellier. But I'll ask you what you thought of that game, in this case. Who won it and who lost it?
I wish I could talk about this game after it happened without the knowledge of Montpellier falling apart the next day, because but I think that maybe says a lot about this game as well, that it took a lot out of Montpellier. Both teams had a big struggle to get to the final, but whereas Flensburg had 2 performances and then maybe Montpellier only had 1 like this. And Ahmed Hesham was phenomenal. Like his return to fitness basically the last 6 months, I think, has been astonishing. He came into the Egypt team for the World Championship where he still looked quite shaky. His improvement over the course of basically the second half of the season has been astonishing. We also can't forget that Montpellier had that penalty shootout victory just like less than a week earlier than that against Paris, and maybe that's also added into this whole, the fact that they fell apart in the final. But I would say it was won more by Montpellier than lost by Kiel. I mean, Kiel gave themselves a really difficult mountain to climb at the beginning, like a really slow start, which they managed to turn around. I want to kind of hark on this every single time that they fail, but I feel like the tactical side was a little bit off for Kiel once again, particularly when it comes to, again, a classic topic of like trusting Elias Elfsson Ashipagotu, because he did perfectly well when he was on, but it feels like whenever things get a little bit edgy or he misses one, then he gets hooked off and then Duvniak comes in. But Duvniak is no better, if you know what I mean, in that, like, over the course of the game. And I think the stats really stated that as well. Like, Ashipagotu, 3 goals from 6 shots, 6 assists. Duvniak, 2 from 8. 3 assists. So it is a little bit kind of going back and being a little bit nervous, I think, cost them there at times, Kiel, and goalkeeper battle as well on top of that. We mentioned how amazing Andreas Wolf is. 5 saves for him at 20% is not going to win you these big games. So it is almost like we've gone back 2 years and we're talking about Kiel with and without Nicholas Landin, but now it's Kiel with Andreas Wolf and whether he shows up or not.
Yeah, and towards the end of the season, Wolf has kind of disappeared. He hasn't had the consistency that he had early in the season in the Bundesliga, or in this Final Four. You forgive him. He's shown that he's done it many times, but it is difficult for Kiel to deal with it. But just on your point about the skipper and his impact, that there's 2 times in the game where Kiel kind of broke ahead of Montpellier, and both of these were led by Skopje, because one was kind of halfway through the first half. They were basically 12-10 down, and Skipper comes on, has 4 assists, 2 goals in the spell to bring Kiel up 17-14 right into the halfway point, where they stay ahead at half time. Then again, Montpellier brought it back, and then with 10 minutes to go, it's the Skipper comes on again, an assist and 2 goals to bring Kiel up 2 goals, and then he's taken off again, and then it gets turned around. So it felt like the times that Kiel really excelled, really drove forward, was when the Skipper was on. But he didn't play that much other than that.
Yeah, and it's fitting to think of one of Kiel's, like in the recent history, great young playmaker and backcourt player who broke through at an early age and has just announced his retirement last night, Aron Palmarsson, who received an awful lot of trust at a very young age, a man who joined the club as he was turning 19 and like was straight into the deep end with the team and really like took the reins. Asha Pagatu just turned 22 now, and it feels like now like the transition period is now over, and he has to be given that team to drive, or he's probably going to have to look elsewhere, because it still feels like he's on until he makes a mistake and then he's off again, which is no good for any handball player, particularly one who can be so mercurial in his approach and can, you want to almost embrace that. We talk about the great, speedy playmaker on the women's side for the last decade, Stina Oftedal. She drove a team who their biggest weakness was turnovers, because occasionally she threw the ball away. It just happens when you're creating great things and you're on the edge like that. And so, yeah, it's like this idea of what they want in their the culture for the years to come. It's an interesting time there. I don't know where it's going to go, but he's getting closer to being given the full reins, and he got it in the bronze medal match against a B team from Melsung, and he tore them apart. So I don't know what that says in it, but yeah, I feel like that was in a game of such fine margins that did make the difference in the end.
Yeah,
they could have controlled that game a lot earlier.
For Montpellier, then they played so well in that semi-final. It flowed really well. That backcourt of Hesham, Simone, and Port just worked really well. They got the ball out to Carlson. He had a fantastic game. It was all flowing, in control. What happened in the final to them?
Kevin Møller, I think he just completely shut them down at a given point. Like, they were always on the back foot in that first half, trailing by 2 or 3 goals. You felt like they could stay in the game a bit like Melsungen did in the semi-final, but then Kevin Møller shut them down. The defense, you mentioned their sheer size, but they turned a lot of balls over. Montpellier became more and more desperate in their attempts to find the line as well, which got cut out quite easily by this. The likes of Golla and Jorgensen just love balls into the line because they're ready to fight against the defense for that, or against the attacking line player for that. And yeah, it felt like Montpellier were just getting a little bit more desperate as the game went on, until very early in the second half when it was clearly game over. And from there, it was just like a bit of an exhibition game between the two of them. So yeah, it might be a clash of styles that made the difference in the end. The goalkeeper performance certainly made a difference, and maybe those 2 massive games they've played, beating PSG, beating Kiel, it was a fridge too far for them in the end.
Yeah, for sure. And I spoke about Flensburg's kind of lack of second wave fast break, but their first wave fast break is dominating. You know, Emil Jakobsen and Lasse Moller on that left side. When you get them going at any speed with a turnover, it's a steam train. It just
Confident Emil Jakobsen is a sight to behold. I tell you what.
He's just a phenomenal player. He's just so great to watch. Yeah. Like his just, the dramatic role, the winger role pop up with every shot it just adds to the theater of it. He's really a joy to watch.
I think Flensburg have to become Flensborg and just go over the border, go to the Danish league. It might suit them a lot better in Europe.
Well, they got, in the final, they only had 2 goals scored by non-Danish players. Yeah. Everything else was the Danes.
I was looking back at looking at the game and thinking of course they're winning this. It's the half of the Olympic and world champion team. Of course they're winning it.
Yeah. And this is without Simon Putlik. Let's remember that as well. I think that adds to a lot.
Were we blindsided by that a little bit?
I think
by his
so.
Absence?
But yes, potentially. That their form has been decent. They've just been good. They haven't been able to scramble back. Lasse Moller is as good of a replacement for Simon Putlik as you're going to get.
He's not as good as him, but he's good. He's good in the combo. And he's good at times. He does have those amazing runs, but then he also was he 4 goals from 15 or something in the semi-final against Melsungen. And then he was perfectly solid in the final. But yeah, it's they're getting big old Marko Grigic, who I commentated on the other day.
Yeah.
We can talk about that more in the summer, but his last 2 games, he's scored 27 goals. He's top of the Bundesliga scoring charts at 257. He's 21 years of age. It's fine. Gottfriedsen's leaving. Moller and Putlik will just become playmakers now, and Grigic will go at left back. Or the 3 of them will just share those 2 positions. It's, I think it's time once again to get hyped this summer about Flensburg's chances to win the league.
This is the year.
This is the year. They're going to become the new Magdeburg. I went through about 5 years in a row in this podcast predicting Magdeburg to win the Bundesliga before they finally did. It could happen now with Flensburg next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lukavitska as well coming in. That's not. I think he's a nice little balanced playmaker to add into the squad for Flensburg. For Montpellier, actually. So one of the.
So is Grigic only joining in 2026?
26.
Boo.
26.
No. I don't know. I think they're gonna have to get him in earlier.
Yeah.
Pay a bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, 26, 27.
I see.
Gergic and Emil Bergholt coming in.
And of course, Kent Robin Tennyson is going in right back to continue. He's going to have one hell. He's going to have one hell of an autobiography. I tell you what.
Just a couple of points on Montpellier. They've had a very good season. They've won a trophy in France. Just fell behind in the French league because of injuries primarily. One of their issues, I think, in this whole weekend is that both of their best players play in the same position and have exact same style, and that is Ahmed Hesham and Brian Monte. Brian Monte showed it in the final that he has the potential. It was Ahmed Hesham in the semi-final, and when one of those got going, the other player just wasn't at the game at all. And maybe not, I wouldn't say You could argue if they're the best players on the team, but they're the two players with the most potential, the most star power. And Hesham, of course, is leaving next season to go to Veszprém, building on that Egyptian contingent over in Hungary. But for Montpellier, they're having a complete squad revamp. It's kind of crazy. Like, of the team that played that final, Hesham gone, Scuba rumored to be gone, Chakusa is leaving, Sebastian Karlsson leaving, Janis Len, who's injured, is leaving, Karl Kanan leaving, Nachinovic leaving, Jaime Fernandez probably leaving as well.
Fernandez would be a big loss, right? Because he's a tense player. Great left wing.
But they're bringing in a swathe of great players. It's, like Casado, Serna, Balaguer, Leo Plantan, good winger, Rogerio Moraes, Jack Turin. They're bringing up, but it's kind of interesting that just the scale of change for this Montpellier team that's coming this season, and it's almost like it's kind of what happens in women's handball a lot, where the top clubs just change around half of their squad relatively frequently. So we'll see how that affects Montpellier. Looks like they're going to definitely be in a strong position going forward, and hopefully at the top of handball for longer.
Yeah, I wonder if that is an impact, like a result of Eric Mathé. Now, like, this is his first season in the club, right? And before that, it was 30 years. 30 years of Patrice Canet as coach. So it's still very much like a squad that Canet had built. And so I think Eric Mathé probably had to adapt his style to the squad that was there. And now he's getting to build a squad that he wants. So maybe it's going to look quite different, this Montpellier team, in terms of how they're going to play as well, with all of these players coming in. Because there's very much a style of backcourt player they're bringing in with Serna, Casado, and Turin. And they're kind of like hard, but a little bit awkward and tall shooters.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of that vibe coming in, but very different to having, Scuba in there. I know that, hopefully Simone is still in there. I thought every time I think he's leaving, he just keeps on going.
Yeah. I was about to go have a whole dialogue of Diego Simone's last chance to win a medal with.
Who knows?
But he just sticks around, and he's been rumored to leave for a couple of seasons now. But he's a good player to have around.
Yeah, and so I think they probably looking to bulk the team a little bit more, and particularly losing Hesham, they have, I think, done that with Serna and Casado coming in. So, and of course Moraes on the line. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out next season. Should we move on from the European League and talk a little bit about? I mentioned his retirement announcement yesterday. We had a podcast on Aron Palmarsson earlier in the season when he joined. Veszprém back in October, so that one is worth listening to when we spoke to Teddy Palmarsson, a man who played against him. But at the age of 34, announcing his retirement, we thought a couple of years ago he'd kind of gone into semi-retirement, right?
We had this podcast already, right? A couple of years ago when he went to Iceland, it was. We had that farewell, I think, but I think this time it seems very much a permanent decision, unless, of course, a team needs a backup player for a Final Four sometime in the future. I think he might. that Joker signing is always available, but Aron Palmarsson, is he a dying breed of player? Just a talented, broody superstar who may have not had the most consistent career, but has had some of the highest peaks of any player ever, with 3 Champions League wins and really on his back, driven teams to Champions League goals.
Yeah, I mean, they had the best first half of a career anyway, in anyone's time. But joining Kiel back when he was just 18 years of age and winning the Champions League. That first season with them, winning it 2 years later, winning 5 Bundesliga titles, and then it was the journey where he ended up kind of falling out with teams pretty much everywhere he went. It's like that perfect relationship he had with Alfred Gislason, that fell apart as he moved to Veszprém. I remember Gislason saying to Tomer Branigan in an interview that him leaving Kiel really hurt him, because he was his special project. He was this Icelandic lad he brought over and helped to raise to stardom, and then leaving Veszprém, hurting his coach in a way, then falling out with Veszprém quite in a massive way to go to Barca, and falling out with Barca to go to Aalborg. Aalborg lasted 2 seasons. I don't think he fell out with them, but he kind of shocked them by saying, I'm going back to Iceland, where he thought, he was going to see out his career. And suddenly everything is okay with Veszprém and his former coach at Barca, who bring him in. So I don't know. He's a very good ex-boyfriend. Clearly, Aron Palmarsson. He makes up with them. Time heals all wounds when you've been abandoned by Palmarsson. But yeah, his particular style of handball when he was at his best was astonishing. He was an all-action player and a really physically. He wasn't too big, but he wasn't small. He had this kind of perfect handball height of the late 2000s, early 2010s. It was this is what a handball player should look like. And then it went a little too big. Now it's going small again. But he was, at his time, the perfect player for that time. So maybe in that kind of particular breed, it is one that's dying out, yeah.
He was a player that you wanted to replicate. One of those stars that played such a exciting brand, and I think there's few of those in handball at the moment. There's exciting players, but you just can't do what Giesel does. That is just. But I remember it was I was back in college playing for UCD and with Kauri, my Icelandic friend, who actually Kauri was an absolute Aron Palmarsson fanboy. He even got a fake ID with the name Aron Palmarsson. That's how much he loved him. And I remember just being in a hall, practicing this pass that Palmarsson did for many years. The one where he jumps up and throws the ball kind of behind his head, so lifts his arm and chucks a ball behind his head to the line. And we spent hours just practicing that one pass. Kauri as a left back coming in and me as a line player. And I think we got it once in a game. And that was as exciting as it got. So, just one of those players that, inspired you, wanted to replicate a true star while also just never saying anything. Yeah. But his playing style spoke all that was needed. So sad to see
we did get him to say now it's time to rock and roll at the Euro on the back.
So, or just like you said, put it under the carpet and let's fucking go. That's it. Just rock and roll and move on for more games.
There'll be no more rocking and rolling. I have a feeling he's going to really enjoy his retirement. I don't think we'll be seeing him back. I think he's going to just enjoy himself in Iceland now. And full credit to him for that. That is in terms of Iceland, Elvar Jonsson is almost that kind of style of player as well. He will take that role in the team as the only one who's not a speedy player like Smarrison, Gisli Kristjansson and Omar Magnusson alongside then Jonsson. So I think it probably at this stage doesn't change too much for them. Maybe just like a proper passing of the torch now to here is the next generation of players, and there's no Aron Palmarsson lurking there on the sideline to either bail you out by scoring 3 amazing goals in a row or going 1 from 5 and blowing it for you. So, yeah, a great career, and also I think understandable at the age of 34 that he has decided to retire, because he did hit the peak very, very early.
2012.
Not a player.
2012 was his peak. That is when he was Icelandic Sports Person of the Year, when he really dominated for that season with both Iceland and Kiel at the time. And that's all a really, really long time ago.
It is. He was 21.
Yeah, exactly.
Last word then there was supposed to be another European champion last night. Alex over in Skopje, not for the first time this season, has had a match cancelled or postponed in the European Cup final with handball club Kira Lazarov, also known as handball club Alkaloid, with a healthy enough lead heading into their second leg against AEK Athens, a proper European Cup, proper third tier final. It's kind of clubs you want to see in there. But the leg in Skopje was postponed, and AEK Athens did put out a statement yesterday evening to give their perspective on what exactly happened. And they said basically that the fans from Greece were not allowed over the border to enter the country to support their team, even though the authorities in Skopje said they would be allowed, and the EHF just kind of giving a bit of a generic response at the moment, as you would expect, saying that the game was postponed due to security concerns. Of course, it's not the first time that we've heard about a clash between a Macedonian and a Greek side. Rare that you get it at the top level of European handball, but that will be certainly one to watch when that one gets, and hopefully does get, rescheduled, because you want those kind of games to be played, to be decided on the court. A 4-goal lead for Alkaloid, winning against AEK 29-25 in the first leg.
Handball in Macedonia is just something else. It is the Wild West. It's almost like a post-apocalyptic version of handball. If the world collapsed and the only way that you could access water was by playing a handball match, that's what handball in Macedonia feels like. The games are shutting down. The fans, everything is going wild constantly in Macedonia, and we're here for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, there was a great video a few weeks ago from a German vlogger, a content creator, who was at the Vardar Pellister game, which really gave us a feel for how heavy-handed that is. And I mean, it is amazing. Like, Alkaloid are the third team, and they're a relatively new club, but I think, just the idea of them facing against a Greek team created this massive thing. It's like,
yes.
It doesn't matter who you support. If you're a Vardar fan, people coming up from Pellister, maybe the old Metalurg fans, they don't have a club anymore. Just everyone coming to, take on the Greeks. So yeah, hopefully that one is sorted out, and we will get to see the final. But yeah, not a surprise at the same time. Good to see that there's some fight in the old dog left, and gives us a bit of a call back as well to the chat we had with Chris the Pans last week and that magical time.
There's another club coming up. The HC Ohrid is going to be the new kind of major power. They've already made some investments last season, bringing in the likes of Lover Jotic, so some kind of international players, but they've also announced some pretty big signings for next season, including Karim Hendawi, the Egyptian goalkeeper, Tilen Sturmbian from Hannover Bergdorf, couple of Bundesliga players, Pedrick Vane, a couple of big players. So there's going to be 4 big teams in Macedonia next year. Yeah, it's nice to see that league after, a lot of tumultuous times with the likes of Metalurg and Vardar in the past. Maybe it's not at the maximum level that it was, where Macedonian team is winning the Champions League multiple times, but it's developing as a league and a nation that just loves handball. Loves it so much that it will tear apart anything in front of it.
That's one way to show your love, all right. That'll do it for this podcast. We'll be back later in the week, of course, as we look forward to the women's Final Four in Budapest. We're hitting the big time now. We've had the tasters of the European League. Now we have the Final Fours coming up. And we'll catch you soon on that. We'll also have a morning club coming up later in the week. But for myself and Alex, for now, it's goodbye.